TheLandofIsrael.com and Israel National TV present Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel. Live from the heart of Israel, it's Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem.
A couple weeks ago today, I got married. We decided to get married in Emek HaElah, the valley of Elah, where David slayed Goliath. Where David slayed Goliath, he decapitated him, lifted up his head, eyes rolled back as the Philistines ran away in fear from the Israelites. It was really romantic. So the wedding was romantic. And we actually got married in a place called Eretz Kedem. Now, Kedem in Hebrew, the Garden of Eden is referred to as Kedem. Kedem means how things once were, in the past. But also, the word in Hebrew, kadima, comes from Kedem as well, means to go forward. To go forward and past is the same word, really because the purpose of the Jewish people, our destiny as a nation, is to progress the world to where it was at the beginning of time. When man walked with God in the Garden of Eden, harmony with the world, at peace with all of creation, it is our job to forge that meaningful relationship and connection between God and the rest of the world.
Tonight we want to talk about Jewish destiny. A Jew, a Torah-observant Jew, keeps the commandments, observes Shabbat, prays to God, puts on tefillin, dressed modestly. If he's not focused on the redemption, if he's not expecting Geula, if he's not living in a tzipiyah la Geula, he's like, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, a well-trained soldier equipped with the finest weapons without a battle plan, forgetting what the mission is, to win the war, victory. That is what Jewish destiny is. It's to bring the world to the finish line. But what does that really mean? What is the redemption? What is Jewish destiny? What is the Geula? Well, the Tanakh has many pictures of what the Messianic era would look like. And amazingly, it has very little to do with intermingling Jewish societies, very little to do with gefilte fish, or very little to do with Jewish at all. The only thing that it has to do with is the Jewish people being a light to the entire world. Isaiah, chapter 2, pictures nations flowing to Jerusalem. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah udvar Hashem b'Yerushalayim. For the Torah shall come forth from Zion, and the word of God from Jerusalem. In that context, the Jews are already home. The Torah is going out from Zion to the entire world. Zechariah, chapter 8, pictures the nations grabbing the Jews by their clothes and saying, please take us with you, for we have heard God is with you. Isaiah, chapter 56, talks about the third temple. And it's not a Jewish temple. It was like a synagogue. It's called a Beit Tfilah Lechol Ha'amim, a house of prayer for all nations. The Jewish people were set in this world to shift and elevate global consciousness. That's why we're here. The Geula will come when we fulfill our role, not as an insular people protecting ourselves, but when we start transforming the world to see what we've been carrying for 4,000 years. Abraham gave us a seal of truth. He gave us a truth of absolute morality, absolute ethics, absolute values. And we've carried that seal to the four corners of the earth, and we've lit up the entire world with that seal of truth. It would have been so easy for us to just kind of die somewhere along the way, assimilate amongst the nations, seduced by Hellenism, be converted by Christians, be submitted by Muslims. But that truth kept us alive. That truth is why we're here. And the redemption is when that truth will be revealed, not by our words, but by our actions as individuals, as families, as societies, and eventually as the Jewish nation. That is why we were given the Torah, to establish one society that people would look at and say, that's the way it was always meant to be. That is what the redemption is.
You know, he speaks about redemptive times. Tova and I were living in the old city on Or HaChaim Street, the main venue all the way down from Jaffa Gate to the Western Wall. And we see throngs, tens of thousands of people from all around the world coming together and walking right in front of our front door. It's like a fantasy. It's a prophecy coming into reality.
Jewish history and Jewish destiny are actually coming together today in Jerusalem. If we've carried a seal of truth, the whole world is searching for truth. And they're looking to us saying, well, where is it? Is there really a God? Are you really going to divide Jerusalem? Is the Bible true? Are you, the Jewish people, really representing God in the world? And how we answer that question will determine our fate. Our success has nothing to do with political alliances in the UN or political strategies with America. Our success will be dependent upon one thing, and that's our integrity. Our integrity to what we know is true, to do what's right, even if it's not easy or pragmatic. And now tonight, we have a leader who is here to express what that truth is. He's a scholar, a wonderful rabbi. He's an inspiration to me and to Ari.
He connects the dots between the abstract and the prophetic and the religious to the purpose of it all, what we're all doing here, and the relevant messages that it has for us right now, because we're at a very relevant point in human history, in Jewish history. It's very unique. So it's such an honor for me and for Jeremy and really for all of us to have on Rabbi Pinchas Winston. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. So we were talking about what a unique point we're at in Jewish history right now. We have, it's almost like, in my mind, caricatures. It's larger than life. There's this Iranian despot megalomaniac who has nuclear ambitions to destroy Israel, and this articulate Western liberal American president forging alliances, and it's just so out there what's happening. Obama just said that if the settlements don't stop, Iran will then have nuclear weapons and use them, creating some sort of correlation. It's like me saying that if Rachel doesn't burn her Shabbat kugel, then I'll egg Jeremy's house. It's like totally disconnected, but he pulls it. We are so close to global isolation, more than ever before. Could you help us make sense of what's happening?
People don't realize, as the whole presentation this evening has been about the fact that the past is the basis for the present and the future. And they don't realize that the reason why we're still wandering around after all these thousands of years, and why we're still struggling to hold on to the land in spite of all the miracles, is because we're here really basically to rectify one specific mistake that we made the entire time through. And we tested, the Talmud teaches, the Mishnah teaches, the Torah teaches that we tested God 10 times, but each time, for the most part, the first 9 times God forgave us, we went on. Even the golden calf, which was such a serious mistake in our history and in terms of ideology, God forgave that. We made amends, and we corrected it to some degree, we moved on. But the basic mistake that really undid everything, that put everything on a hold, not just for 40 years, but for thousands of years, because we never quite got it completely right, even after entering the land, is the fact that the spies came back and they rejected the land. They rejected the land. And what people don't realize, you have to ask a very simple question, because we look at these things from a distance, we sort of sit back and read it at a very superficial level. But you have to ask the question, how was it possible that these people, who were the greatest of the generation, would come back and not just express fear and concern, which is understandable. God certainly tolerates that we're concerned, we're a little worried, we're new to all this. But to come back to the camp after spying the land for 40 days and to reject it right before God, right there. We're not talking about people who are in need of some outreach seminar over here to believe in God or in Torah. They witnessed the whole thing, they experienced the entire thing. They knew this is true. This is God talking, this is God giving, and it was a God-given destiny that's being fulfilled. The question you have to ask yourself, in every generation, was how is it possible that these people who knew so much and saw so much could come back and right in front of God say, we don't want the gifts, we don't want the land. It's suicidal, completely suicidal. I mean, you might just stand around and wait for the lightning to come down from heaven and strike you down because...
How did they justify it to themselves?
How do you justify a thing like that? How do you justify a thing like that? So, there's not enough time to go into the whole story right now, but you have to understand and appreciate that they thought they were doing the right thing. They thought they were doing a mitzvah. They thought they were doing a commandment. By doing this, that God actually would pat them on the back and say, you know something? You're making a lot of sense of you. I hear where you're coming from. Or at least God would come back and say that, I hear the concern, but don't worry, we'll work it out later on. And that's why they were so shocked later on when God came back and said, enough is enough already. And you're not going in. The things that concern you, your children, they'll take the land over. So that's a lesson for all of history, meaning that we see it's possible for us to be in a position where we have to be there. We have to return to Israel. We have to certainly desire to be there, right? And convince ourselves that there's a mitzvah to reject land and to stay away. And that's the one thing for thousands of years that we're supposed to be rectifying. And here we are making the same mistake all over again and watching history unfold based upon the need to fix that, rectify that mistake.
So how do we, as we try to be God-fearing, Torah-observant Jews, how do we rectify that? Where should the Jewish people be focusing their energies? Jews in Israel, Jews around the world, what should we be doing right now at this point?
The nice thing about Judaism, among the many nice things about Judaism, is the fact that even though it's so vast, there's so much to learn and to talk about, that we do have ways to bring things together in simple one-line statements that sum up so much. So King David, he knew that at the end of history, we'd have these questions. He knew that we'd have to be focused. He wrote Tehillim, he left behind messages. Without prophets today, and we don't have both kinds of prophets, the ones that speak about the Word of God and those you made on Wall Street. Without prophets today, that we needed some kind of direction, something to tell us what we should be focusing on. So he left behind a verse, and it sums the entire thing up. It says, Ata takum terchem Tzion. God, you will get up, and you will show mercy to the Jewish people. You will be in need of mercy. Now, the important point to bring out up here is that King David did not say the Jewish people, Bnei Yisrael, or the house of Jacob, anything like that. It says Tzion. Tzion is the name of the state, of the reality of the Jewish people towards the end of days as the final redemption is unfolding, and it will be in need of mercy. We certainly are in need of mercy today. Ki eis lechene kiva moed. Because the time will have come, the appointed time will come. The time of the final redemption will be approaching, and it will be a time that we're going to require mercy. And what does that mercy depend upon? So he summed it up. Ki ratzu avdecha safneha vesafra yechanenu. Because your servants, they're going to want her stones and cherish her dust. He's talking about the White House, talking about Washington, D.C., talking about Borough Park, New York, Toronto, South Africa. What's he talking about? He's talking about Eretz Yisrael, because that was the mistake the spies back thousands of years ago. They didn't want the land. They didn't want its stones. They didn't cherish her dust. The greatest rabbis of history, going back to temple times, went out of their way to show how much they wanted the stones and cherished the dust. So all of this is unfolding today for that one specific reason. It's a question that God's asking after these thousands of years and all that you've learned and all that you experienced and all you want. How much do you want her stones and how much do you cherish her dust? That is the question being asked to the Jewish people today.
And how do we spark that? How do we spark that desire in so many Jews that are disconnected and not really just not in the consciousness?
It's like anything else in life. You yearn for the things that you understand and appreciate will make the biggest difference to enhance your life. The more that you understand that this is going to make your life better, it's going to improve the quality of your life, it's going to bring you more satiation, the more you yearn for something, right? The value of Eretz Yisrael is so understated today. We're watching this fantastic miracle unfold around us, and we don't appreciate it enough. For example, here we sit, this nice big room, calmly, listening to a shiur, as if we're living in some other place in the world. We're surrounded by hundreds of millions of people who every day plan to wipe us off the face of the earth. And they have the money, and they have the chutzpah to do it, and they don't even have people to stop them from doing it. The world is actually siding with them. Even our greatest ally until now is moving more towards them, and yet here we sit here nice and calmly. This is the biggest miracle of all. This is God's way of saying, I am here with you right now, helping you to fulfill destiny. You stick with me, I will stick with you.
So, first of all, that's very inspiring. Thank you. You know, you mentioned that what's happening in the White House with the two-state solution and Netanyahu and Cairo, how do you see our destiny playing out in the current geopolitical context, the way things are set up and developing?
As a historical reality, the Jewish people are destined and meant to depend directly on God. That's always been, that's ultimately the bris, that's ultimately the covenant we made with God going back thousands of years. The idea of having intermediaries all this time has been a very secondary approach to survival and connecting to God. So for a while, God put up with it. He even set it up and made it that way. There's no question for the last couple of decades, the Americans have been wonderful intermediaries. The British have helped out somewhat.
It's like training wheels in a way.
It's like, in a sense, like training wheels, right? And it certainly did the job for the time being. But the ultimate state of the Jewish people is to be in a position, the biggest sanctification of God's name, the best expression of relationship between God and the Jewish people is when it's clear to us, and therefore clear to the entire world, that we live from the hand of God. So we can move towards that. All of us who've moved to Eretz Israel, we're living here, we left behind comfortable homes and comfortable jobs, we're making a statement. The statement we're making is that we want to live more directly from the hand of God. And you see it, the divine providence. So by doing that, if the Jewish people were to do it on their own, then we transition smoothly away from the nations of the world. We'd gain respect in their eyes, and everything would happen according to the ideal circumstance. If we don't do that, and we choose to remain dependent upon the nations of the world, then God creates situations and events that increases and enhances the isolation. And that's what you're watching today. You're watching, going back even a few decades, I've been keeping track of this since the 1980s, going back to Operation Galilee, when Newsweek first published an article saying that we could no longer depend upon the Holocaust to justify our own survival. You saw...
They said a statute of limitations on the Holocaust.
Exactly, yeah. And I thought, what a tremendous statement to make, negative statement, but it was a sign of the times. And you see it moving more and more. It's like the magician who's got that person on some kind of like board supported by sticks, and one by one he pulls out the sticks, and eventually the person's suspended, so to speak, or seemingly in midair, right? When in fact it's really just an optical illusion. In this case, it's real. That one by one, God's pulling out those sticks, all the sources of dependence that are not really what the Jew is supposed to be about. We're not depending upon God as directly as we ought to. One by one, he's pulling them out until eventually all the sticks will be gone. We're all going to go, wow, how's that possible? How can we possibly be suspended this in midair? That's the Jewish people. We live up there in midair because it's the hand of God constantly supporting us. And the more that we realize that, the more secure we'll feel in the events as they transpire from this point onward.
Thank you. Let's get it up for Rabbi Pinchas Winston. Thank you so much.
The key that unlocks Jewish history and reveals the Jewish destiny is the Tanakh. All of the prophecies in the Tanakh, even if they were written for that specific time, were recorded because they have a message for us today. There were thousands of prophets, thousands of prophecies, but only those specific ones were taken into account. And one has come to life for me in the last month, and this is the one I want to share with you. In fact, my mentor, Tovia Singer, my other mentor, David Solomon, actually brought this story to life, and I believe revealed the key and the essence to the redemption of the Jewish people. In the book of Kings, 2 Kings, there's a spectacular kingdom led by Hezekiah. All of the kings of Israel, all of the kings of Judah, the Talmud says only one of them could have been Mashiach. It says that Chizkiyahu could have been Mashiach, but fell at the end. Now, what is that? That's a message to us. Something that Chizkiyahu did, something how he led, the way his people were, that had the potential to be the final redemption. Now, we know that what happened in the days of Chizkiyahu is that the Neo-Assyrian Empire grew. In fact, historians say it was the first real superpower, the first real empire to enter into world history. And this Neo-Assyrian Empire started dominating the world. Hosea and Amos were prophets to the northern tribes of Israel, and they had said, I'm sorry, Israel, you're gone. Goodbye. And Sanherib and the Neo-Assyrian army came in with an army of 185,000 soldiers. Paul Johnson, the historian, says, if we were to translate to a today's type of army, that's an army of 4 million fighting men. That's unprecedented in world history. They came through the northern parts of Israel and ravished them, 46 cities dead. They passed Jerusalem, went down to Lachish, destroyed the second most important army in Judea, leaving Jerusalem all alone. Finally, they surrounded Jerusalem, and they said, if you surrender, maybe it won't be so bad for you. And in fact, they brought people to speak Hebrew and said, don't think that your God is going to save you. Don't think that you'll be saved. Don't listen to your king trying to start a revolution within Israel, saying, we're going to destroy you. It's going to be painful, but if you surrender now, you have a chance. And in fact, the Gemara tells us there was a little band within Jerusalem that started to revolt. And Isaiah the prophet comes to Chizkiyahu and says, listen to me right now. This is when men are made men. Do not make any political alliance. Don't make it with an outside country, and don't make it with Sanherib of Assyria. Jerusalem will remain united. Have faith. Now imagine. It's not time to clap just yet. Soon it gets really good. It was Erev Pesach, the eve of Passover. All of the Jewish people are sitting at their tables. They have a massive army surrounding them, waiting to devour them. And they're eating the Korban Pesach, talking about Geula, talking about the redemption. Say, God saved us from Egypt. What are we going to do? What is Chizkiyahu going to do? And Chizkiyahu, the amazing tzaddik that he was, said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to sleep real good. He woke up the next morning, and what's so spectacular about this story is all of this is archived, historical, in Assyrian, historians, historical facts. This isn't a legend. 185,000 Assyrian soldiers were dead the very next day. God wiped them all out and brought a redemption on the day of Passover for the Jewish people. Chizkiyahu was brought up by a father named Achaz, who literally passed him through the fires of Avodah Zarah, of idol worship, when he was a baby. He grew up a secular Jew, an Avodah Zarah type Jew. The state of Israel was founded by these secular Jews who are now being surrounded by not just an army of 4 million, but of 23 countries, billions. And they're all just waiting to pounce on us. And just like then, they speak to us in Hebrew. And they say, let's make an alliance. Let's make peace. And now the question is, what are we going to do? How will our fate unravel? We never surrender. Shalom from Jerusalem.
We the people of Israel, we just live to survive. Our enemies say that we are on their land. But every empire that enslaved us is gone. Egypt and Rome, even the great Babylon. The Turkish, the British Empire, the Soviet Union. They are all gone, but we are all alive. You will have to serve somebody, Mr. Obama. You will have to serve somebody, yeah. Mr. Hussein Obama, you may serve the Lord in Jerusalem, yeah. Oh, Mr. Obama, you can serve the devil in Tehran. You must serve the God, Mr. Obama. Mr. Obama. We've got no place to escape to. No place to run. We criticize and condemn for being alive. We're supposed to have thick skin. We're supposed to lay down and die when the door is kicked in. But Mr. Obama, You will have to serve the Lord in Jerusalem. Mr. Obama, you will have. Or you can serve the devil in Tehran. Mr. Obama, you will have to serve the Lord in Jerusalem. Oh, crazy journalist condemned us. When we destroyed the bank factory in Iraq, nobody was glad. The nuclear bomb was meant for us in Israel. The only shelter we have, because we've been driving out of every land. Oh, Mr. Obama, you will have to serve the God in Jerusalem. Oh, Mr. Hussein Obama, please don't serve the devil in Tehran. Mr. Obama, you got to serve somebody, Mr. Obama. Wait, you will have to serve the Lord in Jerusalem. Mr. Obama. You know, I heard a cute story. Mr. Obama was in Egypt. After the press conference, he saw the pyramids, and Mr. Obama said, "Who built the pyramids?" And they said, "The Jews built the pyramids." And then he said, "Oh, you have to destroy these pyramids immediately. This is an illegal settlement." Oh. Oh, we got no allies to really speak of. Nobody sent blood and soldiers and a license to kill the Jews. He's giving up to every maniac. Every empire that enslaved us is gone. Egypt and Rome, the great Babylon. We made a garden paradise of the desert sand. We under nobody commands. Only we are under the command of God. A new song just to believe in all the prophecies, in all the miracles. It's the song of the Messianic age that's coming right now. It's the song of 11 of the empires falling down. They think we sold Jerusalem of gold. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah.